Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast. I am Jackson, and I am joined here, as always, by the man who I forgot to come up with an intro for him this week, Kyle. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great day to have some, we got football back. That's the most important thing. And my team won, so I feel good about that.
Yeah, must be nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be a fun show. A lot of stuff to talk about. Crazy first week. It was a blast, even if it wasn't, one game I would have liked to see go a different way. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. Let's just jump into it. First, I'll say, if you want to listen to the audio only, we have those feeds on every podcast. Check those out if you want to. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Let's get into the Sunday night game. Dallas, your team, the Dallas Cowboys, go into a $5 billion stadium. And really, I mean, they made a clear effort to talk about the stadium a good amount. They were very, very proud of that stadium, and ends in some controversy with a questionable offensive pass interference call. Let's just start there. What did you think about the call?
It wasn't pass interference. Jalen Ramsey sold that really well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's all I can really say about that. I mean, they're both battling for position. This continues to be the most frustrating thing about football games is the year will be 3030 and we still won't figure out pass interference and how it exactly works because these referees can't figure it out. Like they were playing right here the entire time. Gallup has his arm out. I'm putting my arm out now like everyone can see it, even though they can't. And, they both battling with their arms fully extended and can't. What is Gallup supposed to do at that point? Just let Ramsey push him and try and get his own pass interference call? I think that it's just a flawed rule in that regard. And, Los Angeles took advantage and they got the win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I didn't think it was a pass interference. I thought it was just, Ramsey sold it. But I've always kind of had the mindset of like, there's luck in football. Like the luck is a part of the sport. Sometimes a ball gets tipped and it results in an interception. Sometimes Jared Goff gets hit in the head and they don't call it, which results in an interception. Sometimes this happens. I mean, it's it's unfortunate, but Rams got away with one. And for Dallas, I think you just you don't want to put yourself in these positions to begin with. There was another, I guess two controversial moments. One was about the refs. Another controversial call was by a man who some say you look alike, Mike McCarthy, who he just elected with about 12 minutes left, down by 3, to go for it on 4th and 3. I didn't hate this call. I don't understand. I think it's a bit results-oriented thinking, people that hate this call.
So there's a couple aspects about this that I was thinking about. The first thing is, I think one of the reasons that I probably, if I were coaching, although I would never be a head coach because I'm not that good, but as an analyst, I can say things like if I were a head coach.
Sure.
I probably would have kicked it just simply because they were trailing for just about all the second half. I think that changed a lot if they were able to tie the game, and their defense had played well in the second half for the most part. I think being able to get those 3 points and put yourself in a position to tie the game is just a huge thing for you in that point. I would have tied the game at 2020. Now, the one thing, because I've always been aggressive, I'm all for it. I'm all for an aggressive play caller. I hate the 3rd and 6 call draw. That's the one thing I hate. If I were to go back, I would just play your normal offense. I'm not game planning a run play to then go for it on 4th down. I'm just making a play on 3rd down. If I don't get it, then I assess the situation, whether I'm a yard or 2 short, or I'm kicking a field goal on 4th and 6. I'm not game planning for getting 3 to 4 yards on 3rd down or maybe catching him by surprise. But still, it felt like a play that was designed to go for it on 4th rather than just playing to score a touchdown.
Well, I mean, I would rather, if you're going to go for it on 4th, have that in mind. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think I would have kicked it as well, but I also feel like there's a difference between, like, I think this was the wrong call and it's not the call I would have made. There's a difference between this is the call I would have made and this is like a very bad call. I think it's kind of a coin flip. I think, I saw Reddit was making fun of him very much. I know, surprising some negativity on Reddit. But, just about the game itself, I thought Ezekiel Elliott was fantastic. Cam Akers, not a best rookie showing, although probably not the worst rookie showing among running backs. We'll get to that in a second. But only 2.8 yards per carry. I think the biggest takeaway I have is just the Rams' offensive line is back.
Yeah, with Andrew Whitworth back and healthy, everything looked good. Malcolm Brown looked fantastic,
Hmm.
and he looked big in that backfield. He was running guys over. I thought he did a great job. I thought Dallas struggled really accounting for him. I thought that was the one thing I didn't really like about the two people that stood out to me on both for each team were Malcolm Brown and on the other side Alden Smith. I felt like Alden Smith on his comeback game
Hmm.
had a very big impact on it, and I'm happy to see him back on the field playing again. So, because he was so fantastic up until, things just started going downhill from him, obviously off the field. So I feel like those two guys had a huge impact on the game. Rams just made more plays, and that's just all there was to it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I agree. We can move on to a different game now. Well, let's go to Chicago, Detroit. This is a wild one. So when we made our predictions, we were only wrong on 3. We did a good job. We went 11-3 so far out of the first 14 games. This was one that this is the one that you got wrong. And you were looking good for a second. A 17-point lead. Definitely a frustrating loss for the Lions. Very reminiscent of last year. Also, just anyone who's watching along with us, ask some questions in the chat. We'll take some questions as well while we're doing this. So if you have anything you want to hear us answer, go ahead and do that. But yeah, I mean, this was honestly, I don't even blame Matt Patricia this much for it. Like, and you know me, I love to blame Matt Patricia, but I actually feel like he actually coached a pretty good game. He dialed up blitzes when he had to, which he usually wasn't doing. He wasn't afraid to switch between zone and man. He was laying off on the 3-man rushes, and even when he did, he picked them wisely enough that they were actually able to get pressure with the 3-man rushes. To me, I think this is just Stafford played poorly. You could argue, I think they probably should have ran some play actions down the stretch. I didn't understand why they didn't go to play action once when Chicago was biting on every running play down the stretch. And Adrian Peterson had a great game, but as a whole, I thought that this was not Stafford's best performance. And to me, I think I blame Stafford more than anybody. And I love Stafford. I just didn't think this was his best game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was his best game. Obviously, the defense in the fourth quarter, if you're giving up 21 points to Mitch Trubisky, it's obviously not your best performance in the fourth quarter. He had, I think, a 40% completion percentage going into halftime, and he manages to pull this thing out. I mean, that just says everything about the entire game, that they're allowing this guy to essentially flip it. He has zero confidence left, and they gave him everything in the fourth quarter, and it's like the Bears just came roaring back at that point. I agree with you. I think that they should have been a little more aggressive in that fourth quarter. Stafford didn't make a few plays that he could have made. And wasn't it DeAndre Swift that dropped the ball in the end zone as well that he could have won the game too?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
and that's what I was referring to earlier when I said the rookie running back. I mean, that's a tough one, wide open, a chance to win it. I believe it was Danny Trevathan who he had a rough night or rough day. He gets beat, but just a drop pass. It's just the Lions' way to lose at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I do give credit to, as we make fun of, the Lions defense for giving up that many points for Trubisky. You have to give him credit too. He turned it around in the second half. That he led that fourth quarter charge. He made some big plays when the offense really needed him to. You give him that credit. Hopefully he's definitely been mean plenty of times. You hope that maybe he can put together a couple more games like this where he starts to regain momentum. I think a lot of it with Trubisky has been confidence issues lately, and he looked confident in that fourth quarter. He was able to make some plays for the Bears.
Yeah, we have Sauce Boss. You kind of said this. What y'all think of Mitch's play? Yeah, I think you kind of answered a little bit there. I think that I actually think that Trubisky isn't that bad if you just let him sort of do his thing. You let him throw down the field. They were very conservative. Even in the third quarter when they were down, they were running the ball constantly. And sometimes you have to just let your quarterback throw the football. You're not going to win football games if you don't let him throw the football. And there was a moment when they were doing that comeback when Trubisky was completing his passes in zone coverage. He was beating zone pretty well. So they tried to do man, but then Trubisky can just run in man. And there was like a legit moment for a second that Mitch looked great. And I'm not sure if he can do that consistently. But listen, I mean, I've been critical of Mitch, but very, very fun to see him turn it around. Also, one more quick note. These are the kind of questions we want. Try to ask questions about what we're currently talking about. Because so that way we can get it now. So you do it on the game we're talking about. Definitely try to do that. I might still get it if not, but that helps us out. But yeah, I'm assuming you agree about the Mitchell Trubisky stuff.
Yeah, now that as we're going to talk about later, now that we let Russ cook, then the next social media craze is going to be let Mitch cook.
Yes,
Let Mitch cook. No,
exactly.
but
Stop, free Mitchell Trubisky. Okay.
but I mean, no, he like I said, 40% completion percentage in the first half. He ends up 20 for 36 in the game. He turns it around in the second half, and he's able to lead this game back. We joked beforehand that he owns the Lions, and he was able to do it yet again. Now, are they good enough to compete with the Packers or Vikings? I don't know, but clearly that he proved he was able to make some plays. Hopefully, confidence wise, going forward, it helps the team.
Yeah, I didn't even think he should have started, and he proved me wrong. So good on him for that. Let's move on to very depressing, very disappointing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your quarterback Tom Brady did not do very good. I am wearing my Guinness jersey because I am now team drinking after the very disappointing Tom Brady performance. Not a very. I'm not gonna blame it all on Brady. Really was a sloppy team, and quite frankly, it looked like a team that just had never played together. Very sloppy game as a whole, and the Saints just looked like a well-oiled machine. This was a game I feel like if we played 100 times, Tampa Bay wasn't going to win.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, we did our predictions, and I picked the Buccaneers to win the division. But when we did our for week one predictions, I picked the Saints to win this game. I think that one of the things that, especially in these first, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, especially as we had no preseason games or anything like that, not that the preseason is that big of a deal, but I think continuity is going to be a big thing for the first couple weeks of the season, at least, until these teams get comfortable. I think the Saints virtually returned everyone and then added Emmanuel Sanders and Malcolm Jenkins, who played on the team already before. So I think having that sort of mindset, having that core there returning, I just think was a big thing for the Saints. The Buccaneers defense, I thought, looked very good at times. I thought they looked really fast. Levante David and Devin White are just a joy to watch, just tackle everything in their sight. I love watching those two play linebacker. The offense, of course, is the one that needs some work. I think that it was very evident that Evans and Brady hadn't really practiced together. I think that he looked good with Godwin. He threw a couple nice balls to Godwin. He looked really good with Scotty Miller. He looked really good with OJ Howard. I think once he starts working with these superstar receivers that he has, I think it's going to turn around. I still see the Buccaneers as like a 12-4, 11-5 team. It just doesn't mean that they're going to win this game. They're going to turn around and be fine. There's too much talent in this team not to work. I think the biggest takeaway you have to take away if you're Tampa is, A, you can't make that many mistakes, especially against a team like a Saints. If you're going to be a good football team, you can't lose to bad teams by beating yourself. And then the other thing is you have to feel pretty good about Ronald Jones in that running game, which had a lot of questions before the season.
Yeah, Ronald Jones looked great. I tweeted out who was wearing 27, what he's done with Ronald Jones. Really had some electric runs out there. I'm kind of like, I'm not concerned. Like I'm okay. Like I'm fine. I keep telling myself I'm fine. I'm fine. But this is the kind of thing where it's like, I think one thing, just the fact that we haven't made the playoffs since 2007, there is that, like, this is all going to blow up in our faces again. And of course, this is the kind of thing now where, like, we can't lose next week. We're playing Carolina, who actually looked pretty good against the Raiders. We have a few must wins now. We lost the game we were supposed to lose, but now we have to win the games we're supposed to win.
Yeah, and I do think that there's a lot of winnable games coming up. I think they have Carolina, Denver on the road, who's battling a couple of injuries, the Chargers at home, who have Tyrod Taylor, the Bears on the road, who, we'll see what we get out of Trubisky, as we talked about. There are winnable games. I think if there are these chemistry problems in week 6 or 7, that's where you start to have a lot of questions about the team. But, I think these first couple weeks are going to say, we're figuring things out. We're still gelling together. They just can't make mistakes. They can't continue to make the simple, the constant mistakes, the constant penalties. The penalty yards look very similar between them and the Saints, but that was because there's a couple bombs for pass interference against the Saints. I think that Tampa Bay was by far a more sloppy team, and that ridiculous kick situation. I don't know what the guy running backwards was trying to do, acting like Willie Mays to catch that kick, pooch kick.
Yeah.
Just let the kick returner catch the ball. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't understand that play. I think that once they start gelling a little bit, I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, well, and that's something that drives me crazy. Our special team's been the worst in the league. I mean, it's just abysmal. And it's a real problem. I again, another, not to keep talking about the tweets, but I also tweeted out I was more excited about the made extra point at the end of the touchdown on the opening drive than the drive itself, with how bad our special teams has been. But let's go over to from my favorite team to your favorite team. Meet your new dynasty, same as the old dynasty. New England Patriots beating Miami in a weird score, 21-11. Cam Newton looked healthy. He looked good out there. Didn't throw much. I was very surprised at how often they ran. I thought he was going to be throwing more this year. Maybe not the case, at least not early on. But he was still 15 for 19 of 155 yards when he did throw. He also had 75 yards rushing. It wasn't a perfect game. They definitely had some mistakes, most notably a N'Keal Harry bad fumble with the dumbest rule, unless it goes in your favor, of the ball going out of the side of the end zone. I know you kept a close eye on this one. What was your thought about this game?
Yeah, I mean, so if he just goes out of bounds at the 1 yard line, or if they change the rule to where it just goes back to the 10 yard line if you fumble out of bounds in the end zone, or anything that's not as dumb as a touchback, the game's probably 28-3 at that point. Patriots' favorite sport in football,
an insurmountable lead.
Yes, exactly. No one's ever come back from 28-3. But I'm all for it. I thought they looked great. I thought the offense was very conservative, which makes a lot of sense because they had not a lot of practices. They didn't have any preseason games, and it's a new quarterback. Belichick is going to take that conservative approach, and I thought it made a lot of sense. They have a great running quarterback in Cam, who can pretty much the one that stood out to me was the short. It was like a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 down, and they needed a first down. They put 7 offensive linemen on the field, 2 tight ends, and a fullback, and Cam just ran people over down to the goal line. It's just the way he can just run people over as a quarterback is fantastic. He's so fun to watch. I was just a huge fan of everything that he did. I thought the backfield looked really good. Michelle had a few nice runs up the middle. I like a lot of what James White does. He's always great. Burkhead looks good. J.J. Taylor was on for 9 snaps, and he had 4 carries for 28 yards and a catch. I thought he was really explosive out of backfield too. I was really pleased with all those running backs, and I was pleased with the receivers too. Edelman did his thing because it was basically Miami had no film on the Patriots. They had no film on this offense and what it was going to look like. So the Patriots kind of ran all over them to begin. Miami adjusts in the second quarter, and they start putting 5 or 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, basically saying, you're not doing this to us. And then the second half, the second half was probably the most perfect drive of the game. They basically come out, and it's 3 straight play action plays. They're faking that read option, and then it's just Edelman over the middle, which Brady did 1,000 times, and there's no linebacker standing there because they're all on the line of scrimmage waiting for the run play. Cam Newton runs it to perfection. He ends up getting the rushing touchdown, which wasn't really a rushing touchdown. He was down at the 1 yard line, but we'll take it anyway. So overall,
too close to call, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was pleased with everything. I was pleased with how the offense looked. I understood the conservative approach. I love the running game. I love pounding the ball. I think it's going to be a great look going forward. The defense, I thought the secondary made plays, which was basically what they need to do and what they've continued to do. They created 3 turnovers, obviously. They'll face better quarterbacks than Fitzpatrick, especially next Sunday night. But I think that the one thing that the Patriots, the biggest concern I had from the game was the size of Miami and how they were able to take advantage of that. I thought they had a lot of plays over the middle where those receivers, they have a big receiver group that made a lot of plays. Mike Gesicki seemed like he was open all the time. And a lot of that has to do with the Patriots linebackers who have since left. And I think that's going to be a big thing. When they're putting 5-6 defensive backs on there and they don't have Jamie Collins, Dante Hightower, or Van Noy in the linebacker group, can they continue to make plays over the middle of the field? I think that's going to be the big thing for the defense.
Yeah, and the Lions didn't have Jamie Collins either. I forgot to talk about that, the dumb thing he did to get himself ejected. We also, a lot about the Patriots. We should talk about the other team that played in this game. We saw a return of Fitztragic. Definitely not. I mean, a lot of guys get beat by this defense, but he definitely, ugly stat line, 191 yards on 30 attempts, 3 picks. I know some fans were complaining about the Gilmore should have been interference, but I mean, you're nitpicking at that point. Also worth noting, I think we're all excited to see how Parker and Gilmore were going to match up again. They changed their defense a lot, it seemed. They didn't really shadow him the way they did last time, and Parker went down with an injury at a certain point. So we didn't really get that matchup. Hopefully next time they play, maybe we could get that. But yeah, any final thoughts on the New England Patriots?
I mean, the Dolphins look feisty. They continue to fight with Flores. I wasn't really surprised that they didn't decide to go to Tua, especially against a defense like New England. I feel like that's just asking for him to lose all of his confidence in week one.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall that it was a fine performance from Miami. But yeah, I think this 21-11 doesn't really do this game justice. Like I said, if Harry finds a way to get in the end zone or just goes out of bounds at the 1 yard line, this game's 28-3, and it's probably over at that point in the fourth quarter. New England was just a much better team. So I'm reserving a lot of my judgment. I was pleased, but I'm reserving a lot of my judgment until the competition steps up.
Yeah, they got, I believe they have Seattle next week. So on Sunday Night Football, that should be good. Good test. Let's move on to my, I told you in the pre-show, I'm definitely going to brag about this one. My best prediction, predicting Arizona to beat San Francisco. I feel very good about that. It was for some of the reasons I said, although some of it, honestly, some things got just a little lucky, and it was a game that came down to the end of it. I didn't think either quarterback played their best football. Garoppolo certainly didn't, even though the stat line itself isn't that bad. Definitely not a great showing for the 49ers, but it's also a matchup nightmare. And I mean, their receiving core is just so hurt. I mean, their number one player in terms of receiving yards was Kendrick Bourne, who had 34 receiving yards. There were three, Mostert, Kittle, and Juszczyk all had more receiving yards, and Juszczyk only had one catch. So the receiving, they need to get the receivers healthy. Again, Cardinals weren't exactly perfect, but really when they had to be good, they were good. And DeAndre Hopkins proving everybody wrong, showing he is worth a second-round pick with a big play there at the end to set up the game-winning touchdown. What was your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Houston lost that trade.
Yeah. Remember when David Johnson had one good game and we were all like, maybe.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's just DeAndre Hopkins was fantastic. I thought Kyler, when he needed to, made big plays. He looked electric. Obviously, that touchdown run was the thing everybody noticed. Arizona looks really good. I thought that offense was good. I think that the one thing about the NFC West, too, is these games just kind of get weird. It seems like every NFC West game that I watch, when it's the divisional matchup, is just a 3 or 4 point game. And I think that all four of these teams are loaded. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Rams, and they look good against a team that everyone's pretty high on in the Cowboys. I just think that all four of these teams are going to be good. It's going to be a battle for all four of these teams to win football games. Now, the question I have is, did it feel like that the Cardinals just completely outplayed the 49ers, or are the 49ers kind of on that Super Bowl hangover that we were talking about, where the team that loses the Super Bowl, it's happened time and time again, they come out really flat?
Yeah, luckily they have a get-right game next week. San Francisco does against the Jets, who we'll get into in a second. That was not a great start for them. Also, I want to mention, while Kyler didn't necessarily have the best statistical performance passing, 26 for 40, 230 yards, one touchdown, one interception, he did have 91 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So definitely still had a solid game, even if it wasn't necessarily entirely through the air. That was a fun one. Let's get into another wild upset. The Jacksonville Jaguars beating your pick for the division-winning AFC South. What happened here? Colts, what are you doing?
Well, it's almost as simple as just looking at the stats. Phillip Rivers had 2 turnovers, and Gardner Minshew had 1 incomplete pass. 95% completion percentage with 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think that he looked fantastic. He made the right play every time. CJ Henderson came up with the big pick. It comes down to as simple as that. Phillip Rivers has to he can't make mistakes constantly like this. We felt like that he wasn't that great last year with Los Angeles. I thought maybe with a better offensive line, it gets a little better for him. And, I think statistically he actually had a pretty good game. But then, you can't turn over the ball, especially late in the game like he did.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I thought Rivers was playing really well, but then the two interceptions late were just. I mean, I was ready to make a video saying Rivers is back. Look at how great he's playing. He still had 363 yards. He did throw the ball 46 times, so that's why. But still, I mean, it wasn't a bad day as a whole. But the turnovers are a real problem, and especially the second one. It was just a dumb turnover, and he needs to find a way to cut. It's not something you expect from bringing on a veteran to come in. Uh, and so yeah, I just think that it's someone says here too many lies. So I wonder if this is true or a lie. He said Rivers is either really good or he's garbage. That kind of just tends to be the thing. It's inconsistency, and that's why I didn't predict the Colts to make the playoffs, even though I do like a lot of their roster because I don't know if I trust the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think so this running back room really interests me too. They really struggled to kind of get going. Only 88 yards on the ground too. When I understood that Jonathan Taylor's really talented, so you wanted to draft him. He had a better game in the receiving department than he did rushing the ball. When did we determine that Marlon Mack wasn't good enough to play? Like he had 4 carries in this one. I thought
he got hurt.
Oh, did he get hurt?
Yeah,
Oh.
he got hurt. That's why. Yeah,
I missed the injury then. My fault.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
you're good. Yeah.
I do think that they do need to figure out this running back room where they have 3 guys going out. I think that somebody needs to find a rhythm. I think the one thing with Taylor is he carried the ball so much at Wisconsin. He was very much a rhythm guy. He was getting the ball first, second down where they brought in a guy. Garrett Groshek was at Wisconsin as their kind of third down guy. Taylor was getting the ball first or second down virtually every play. I think they need to find a rhythm in that running back department or in that running back room to get him going or get Marlon Mack going when he's healthy. I don't think this team is built that Phillip Rivers should throw the ball 46 times in a game. I get that they were trailing late in it, but I just think that they have to find a situation where they're balancing that a lot more.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they ran the ball about 20 times. I mean, a 2-to-1 throw to the run ratio. That's complete opposite of what we thought they were going to be. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Let's move on to Las Vegas. Wild game over here. I'm looking forward to being able to watch the whole thing. Obviously, I can sort of just do red zone and I try to watch as many games as possible before coming on here. This one I have not watched yet, but I did get a good look at it. I mean, it seemed like both quarterbacks were good. Both running backs were great. And that was really what made this game fantastic. Josh Jacobs, 3 rushing touchdowns. I'm probably gonna make a video on him at a certain point to see what happened there. Yards per carry wasn't even that great. 93 yards on 25 carries, but the touchdowns, that's what really gets it done, especially when they had problems with scoring in that goal line situation. Also, Panthers offense looked very good. Maybe we have underrated them to some degree. Robbie Anderson gets 115 yards. Perhaps some concerns about the Raiders defense. There already were concerns about the Panthers defense. But as a whole, we talked about this is the big game for the Raiders to win with their schedule getting tougher. So definitely good on them for pulling it out.
Yeah, I was watching this one out of the corner of my eye, mainly for financial reasons, watching it out of the corner of my eye. And the Raiders offense looks really good. I think that especially when Ruggs was on the field in the first half before that injury, he looked pretty electric. He hit him downfield for a 45-yard pass early in the game, and they were using him in reverses. They were getting him the ball as many times as they could. And then he had the gimpy leg thing at the end, and then he ended up coming back, but I don't think he touched the ball after that. I thought the Raiders offense, like I said, I thought it looked really good. It looked pretty explosive. I have questions about the secondary because I didn't think that they struggled to get a pass rush in the first half, and then they struggled to get stops just in general in the second half. And, Joe Brady was viewed very much as the offensive genius, and he probably is. But this isn't even his first NFL game as an offensive coordinator. This is his first time calling plays as an offensive coordinator for like a major team. He didn't call plays at LSU. He was the passing game coordinator. And they had moments where they struggled to stop the Panthers offense. Obviously, the 75-yard pass to Robbie Anderson was the big one. But I just think overall that secondary has to be better, but the rest of the team looks promising. I thought there was a lot of really good pieces of that. And if Ruggs stays healthy, I think that they can be a very dynamic offense. The big thing for me with Carolina was they had a chance to win it at the end, the 4th-and-1 play where they handed it to the fullback instead of giving it to McCaffrey. That ended up being a difference. That's just, if you have I just never understood that. You know, you have a guy like McCaffrey who actually ran pretty well between the tackles too. You know, you have to give him the ball there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I always try to not freak out about one decision like that because I don't want to be like results oriented. It's not probably not the move I would have made, but I think if McCaffrey gets stopped, everyone blames like, oh, everyone's expecting a McCaffrey. You got to do play action. People probably won't blame you as much, but he called a play he thought it was going to work. It didn't work. At the end of the day, to me, the real problem with this game for Carolina wasn't that one call. It was giving up 34 points. So also one more note, no sacks given up by the Raiders offensive line. Raiders O-line looking great. I made a video on will they be able to stop Brian Burns? I said no. I don't think they'd be able to stop him altogether. I thought he was going to get at least a sack. Raiders O-line showed up, did not allow a sack at all. So great job by them.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I definitely had no expectations for this Carolina secondary. I think it's probably the worst in the league, but Carr was able to pick him apart. He played really well. That touchdown to Aguilar was just a beautiful throw. The throw to Ruggs, he probably could have put a little more air on, but overall, it was just I thought it was a solid game for him. He made a lot of good plays, and then when they got down to the red zone, Jacobs finished. I thought he played very well overall.
Yeah, agreed. Let's move on to so sorry Raiders fans, we're gonna move on now. This one was a fun one. You had the Chargers taking on the Bengals. A very fun ending to this one. It was a very Chargers ending, but in the opposite way. It was also a very Bengals ending in the correct way, where Joe Burrow, all of a sudden, he's showing why he was the first overall pick. He might have had some mistakes earlier on in the game, not the best stat line. But when they need him to get a scoring drive, he's going down the field. He's looking great. I made a video on the ending of this drive. There's again another controversy. Unfortunately, there was a questionable offensive pass interference penalty. This one I thought was, you could argue it's soft in the moment, but I think that it's one of those where you can't complain if you do it. And that resulted in a touchdown getting waved off. They go for a field goal with 7 seconds left at the 13. They could have tried one play, decided not to. And their kicker, who goes by the moniker Fat Randy, ends up getting injured on the kick. Looked like he pulled a hamstring, misses the kick, despite it being a chip shot, resulting in a Chargers win. Just a wild, weird ending, and a very, very fun way for that one to end.
Yeah, I think it's like contractually obligated because they have no fan base that the Chargers have to have a weird game every week and have to have a weird ending in the special teams department. Mm-hmm. Sorry to all Chargers fans in the chat for dissing your franchise that moved for no reason. But anyway, yeah, they just have to have weird games all the time, especially in the special teams department. Of course, the kicker is going to pull his hamstring at the end of it after, the close play in the end zone. I thought Burrow looked fine overall. I mean, it's hard to have a lot of expectations. I think this Chargers defense is very good. Not to mention that it's hard as a rookie quarterback in week one. I thought he did fine overall, and obviously at the end he put his team in a position to win, which is the most important thing. And if that call goes his way in the end zone, they win this game. I was very pleased with him overall, and the Chargers backfield was what really impressed me. Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly, the UCLA product, I thought they were both fantastic in this one. They ran the ball really well.
Yeah, definitely. What I find interesting about this game is sort of it's kind of week in, very low scoring game. Part of you wonder. First off, getting distracted by the chat, but like people saying there's no Chargers fans in this chat. But yeah, part of me wonders how much of this, people wanted me to talk about the Bengals defense. How much of this was the Bengals defense? How much of this was the Chargers offense just not being that great? And same thing, vice versa. So that's kind of why it's hard to really. That's why you want to not overreact after one game. But yeah, I mean, definitely a good showing for some of the backs in the backfield for the Chargers, and a good showing by both of these defenses, and promising for Burrow. I mean, again, statistically, only 193 yards on 36 attempts. He only had 23 completions on those. He did throw an interception, but he had 46 receiving rushing yards as well. So that's solid. And again, I'm less concerned about how good are you playing and more concerned about what are you showing. It's kind of like a preseason for a full season in a kind of way. I want to see you look good in certain moments. I don't really care about what your stats are to some degree.
Yeah, it's hard to have really a judgment on either of these teams because we didn't really have a lot of expectations for either of these teams, especially once Derwin James went down. I think the interesting thing is I think the Chargers, I understand the cautious approach towards rookie quarterbacks, but at the same time, if you watch this game and you just watch Tyrod Taylor, what exactly is he doing that Justin Herbert can't do? I guess that would be my question. 16 of 30. He didn't impress me at all. What exactly could he do that Justin Herbert can't going forward? That's my question, because the offense looked flat at points outside of the two running backs, like I mentioned. And Hunter Henry had a good game as well, but I just feel like if it's continuing like this into week 5, 6, what's the point of him even being in there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I never really understood though, like when someone sits, when you know they're just going to start like 3 weeks later, like just have them start that if you're going to. But yeah, I don't know. It's always a weird thing. But we can move on. Fun to see Burrow in an NFL game. Let's talk about one of a big upset. The last big upset. The Washington football team, currently in first place in the NFC East. What a wild way to start off the season, coming back from down 17. Looked like a lot of what happened was, I mean, if we're being honest here, I'm not going to say Dwayne Haskins was great, 17 for 31, 178 yards, but he didn't turn the ball over. And Wentz did multiple times. And that was kind of the difference here. And I think that it's fair to say Wentz did not play well. He was under pressure through a lot of this game. The Redskins, or the football team's defense, really showed up. I mean, a ton of sacks. Chase Young had a sack and a half. Kerrigan had multiple sacks. Matt Ioannidis had a sack and a half. I mean, Montez Sweat had a sack. John Bostic had a sack. There was just sacks all around. And it's very much, I'm trying to see now. So plus there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different players had at least half a sack. That's just a lot to deal with for the Eagles. Offensive line not showing up well. Wentz didn't play great. It's not all his fault. The line didn't play well. But as a whole, you can't turn the ball over like there. And I mean, I for one welcome our new football team overlords.
Yeah, so remind me, Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson didn't play in this game, right? And Andre Dillard, obviously.
The Lane Johnson's the only one I'm not 100% sure about, but the other two, they didn't play.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously hurt, but at the same time, I feel like when is Philadelphia not hurt at the same time? So it's like, but yeah, I mean, when we were talking about this game, you ended up making this prediction. I said, I felt like this game was sort of a lock, but the only thing that's going to change it is if Washington's defensive line just goes nuts. And Washington's offensive line just went nuts. I mean, that's the big thing here. I think, I don't think they're good in a lot of areas. I think that they're, in fact, bad in a lot of areas. But they have this defensive line's elite. And if you have an elite part of your game in football, you put yourself in a position to win games. This defensive line just wreaked havoc on Philadelphia. And, yeah, I think Wentz, it wasn't a good performance. He had the 2 interceptions. And I think the big thing with him is that he's got to know when to get rid of the ball. He's got to know these guys are coming. It wasn't a secret in the scouting report that they have a good defensive line. He's got to figure out how to get the ball out of his hands quicker in these situations and not put himself in a position to make these mistakes.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert also had over 100 receiving yards, so some positives for Philadelphia. But as a whole, I mean, this was when we did our draft, this was the last team to go off the board. So this is the team that we felt confident the most in as a duo, that it would end up being a Eagles victory. Tough way to start the season, but Philadelphia, they lost to Miami last year. They have a way to do this, and I know you're a big Doug Peterson guy, but you can't be losing to these teams. You just can't. And maybe the football team's going to be better than we realize. I mean, with a great defensive line, you have a chance to win any game. So, they do have that going for them. They definitely look better than I thought they would. But at the same time, I mean, when you have these games that you're supposed to win, you do kind of have to win these. And I think it's not a good situation that this is not the first time that they've been pretty heavy favorites and fallen short.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I guess you feel okay about is that all likelihood, because I think the Steelers are going to beat the brakes off of the Giants. You're essentially just chasing Washington now for the division. You're only down 0-1, and we all kind of felt like this was a one-team playoff division anyways. So I guess you feel okay about that. It's just crazy to me. Washington ended up with 5.7 yards per pass and 2.2 yards per rush. It won the football game.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
won the football game with those numbers. The offense, I didn't think looked very good at all. But like you said, there was two differences. It was the defensive line, and Wentz didn't take care of the ball, and Haskins did. That just made the difference.
Also, Honk Lives Matter says football team is a great name. I couldn't agree more. It's the best name. It's it's my favorite. I really hope they keep it just forever.
So I was curious. I didn't listen to the broadcast. Did they call them like first down football team and all that, or
I
do we
don't
need
know.
like a
Well,
shortened name for broadcast purposes? Should it just be Washington? Should it be the Balls? I would love if it's the Washington. For the Balls are going bananas in this one.
maybe we can maybe workshop that one a bit.
Yeah.
There was a great moment I was watching Red Zone when Scott Hansen said, he goes, that was a great team sack there. And then he said, never has that been more true than when talking about the Washington football team. But yeah, good stuff there. Let's go to some not so good stuff. New York Jets, what are you doing? The Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen was abysmal. His stats weren't great, weren't bad. He was not good. He had one of his worst games as a pro, and they blew out the New York Jets. This was so depressing. From my understanding, from looking at, I didn't watch this whole game. I watched a little bit of it, and then obviously I watched Red Zone. From my understanding, a lot of what happened here was that the Jets were just way too many screen passes. Seemed like Adam Gase is just in love with screen passes. But this is just a rough way to lose. They talked about their offensive, we talked about maybe they've made some subtle improvements in the offensive line. It looked as bad as ever, except Becton was nice. But other than that, he had a couple of rookie mistakes, but he was fine. But I mean, Darnold was a mess. The defense, even with Josh Allen begging you to get him off the field, he still couldn't get him off the field at times. This was just he still ends up with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a rushing touchdown. He did throw the ball 46 times. This is just a rough game for the Jets, and people got mad at us for being very low on them. Seems like we might have been too high on them. This is not great.
Yeah, I don't know what the expectation should have been for the Jets if we were too low on them. I mean, I don't get
Great
it.
comment by Trent Stoneberger. Sorry, these comments crack me up. I'm totally distracted. Continue, please. Sorry.
No, it's like I don't understand what the expectations was supposed to be for this team. This team has just a lot of bad players. Your best players are a free safety and slot corner on your entire team. You don't really have a lot of things going for you on this team to get excited about. And your coach hates your best offensive players, so he gets 6 carries for the game and 2 receptions. So where exactly is this supposed to go well? I think Darnold has the talent that he can succeed, but it's not happening with this team, with this coach, with this offense. If we're going to say that we're out on anything in week 1, I'm out on the Jets. I'm out on this team who just looks completely sloppy. They have one of the worst head coaches in the league. He's a quarterback guru who quarterbacks outperform themselves after he leaves. That says everything about what Adam Gase is. I'll keep beating this point to death. Tannehill was a lot better after he left. I think that I don't know. I don't see where where the expectations are supposed to be high on this team. I like Becton. I still really like him as a prospect. But this team is just, this team might be worse than the Jaguars. They need the full rebuild. If at this point they should just blow it up too, which they kind of are with trading Adams. But
yeah, kind of. I mean, at this point, they completely wasted Sam Darnold's rookie contract. I think it's fair to start having the conversations of, are we out on Darnold or not? Like, I think it's time to start having those conversations. Like, I know that he's been in a terrible situation. I think they probably would like to get a new head coach in and then see what he can do. But he was not good today. He might have had his worst game as a pro as well. The 2018, I believe, rookie class, not coming in too strong with the exception of Lamar Jackson in terms of quarterbacks. Not rookie class, but you know what I mean? The one bright side, Jamison Crowder, 7 catches, 115 yards and a touchdown. A lot of that was one big catch, but the one bright side. And for the Bills, I mean, their defense looked fantastic. Again, Josh Allen, who I like a lot more than you do. Josh Allen was really bad today, and they still pull off a dominating win. Gotta make you feel good, and gotta make Jets fans want to cry.
I mean, what doesn't make Jets fans want to cry at this point? Yeah, I mean, listen, the whole Allen thing, I mean, until he proves he can beat good teams and like not force himself into mistakes, I'm just not going to be in on Josh Allen. He's still winless against the Patriots. He's still, makes boneheaded decisions in big games and big spots and against playoff teams. I'm just not going to be on him until I'm reserving judgment for Buffalo, who a lot of people hyped as the third best team in the AFC, even though I think it's Pittsburgh, clearly. A lot of people hype this team as the third best team in the AFC. I'm reserving judgment on Buffalo until they play a real football team. No offense, Jets fans, but you're not in a position that I'm going to, judge a lot of teams against you, because I just think you're a mess. You lost CJ Mosley. You lost Jamal Adams. You're in a complete disarray. I want to see the Bills play. I want to see the Bills a little more before I reserve any judgment. I think the defense is always going to be good. But it's just, we'll see what happens when they have a big game ahead of them. That's just kind of been Josh Allen's MO.
Yeah, they play the Dolphins next week, so you think that's probably should be another, at least they'll be very favored. But they play the Rams the week after, so maybe that's going to be their first real, big game of the season. Also, Rich Kendall says, something wrong with your mustache, bro. Yeah, I know. It's my playoff beard. The Lightning are in the playoffs. I can't really grow a beard. This is what it grows like. What do you want me to do? All right, deal with it, okay? My beard's really bad too, but you can't notice it because my microphone covers it. Jesus Christ. So many people. My voice and my mustache. Why do you care about my voice or mustache? Leave me alone. All right, moving on before I get too heated about the comments. Move on to Cleveland, Baltimore. Speaking of rough quarterbacks from the same draft class, again, Baker Mayfield, I don't want to get too on him, but like he wasn't great. The Browns really early on struggled, but I also think a lot of this too was just Baltimore's a really good football team. I think it would be unfair to blame this all on just the Browns being bad, but at the same time, a 32-point loss in the season opener, not what you wanted with a team that has playoff aspirations.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be a little more harsher than you on this one, because I had expectations for the Browns, and those expectations weren't going to be a 38-6 loss to open the season. I think that they're definitely a tier or two below the Ravens, but not 38-6 if they're going to be a potential playoff team like I thought. And you know what, Baker, you said he wasn't great. He was very bad. He sucked. He was just awful in this one. He made a lot of bad decisions. He probably could have easily had more than one interception. Odell Beckham looked shitty, no pun intended, for anybody who follows the rumor mill.
Boo.
I think that this team, I think Chubb and Hunt need more than, what is it here? I'm doing math quickly. That's not good. I'm an English major. They need more than 23 carries. I think those two guys, I know they were down the majority of the game, so that changed a lot of things. But when you're down big, just run your offense. I think those two guys need to have 30, 35 carries a game combined every time. I think that's how this offense is going to be successful, because you can't rely on a quarterback like Mayfield throwing 39 times a game.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is why I'm not a big, again, I like Baker Mayfield a lot as a guy. He's like a very fun guy. Like he would someone I want to hang out with. He's not someone I want as the quarterback for my football team, especially not this football team. It feels to me like it's a team on Madden to some degree, where they have a lot of talent, but they don't necessarily have, like, it doesn't seem like they're really trying to fit it a certain system. They just have the talent that they can, and they're sort of bunching it all in together. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just tough. It's hard to really, again, we sort of say like, we say with like the Bills, let's see how to play a real football team. Well, let's see with Cleveland, when they play a team that's not a Super Bowl contender, maybe they can be better. But again, let's talk about Baltimore for a second. I mean, again, this is just a dominating performance, and like, you have to feel super confident if you're a Ravens fan after this. Everyone was super high in the Chiefs. Baltimore goes out, does them one better. Lamar Jackson was fantastic. He throws 3 touchdowns, 20 for 25, and he only carried the ball 7 times. So he threw the ball for most of this game and was very good at it. this was your guy who you think sucks, Marquise Brown. He goes for 100 yards, proving you wrong. And I think that this is J.K. Dobbins, the rookie. He only carried the ball 7 times, only 22 yards, but had a pair of touchdowns, like just across the board. And we got to see some Robert Griffin action, which is always fun. Just all the way across the board, just a dominating win, and Baltimore proving why we both picked them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they just made big plays. Mark Andrews had the big catch in the end zone, the one-handed grab that was cool. Patrick Queen, I thought, looked really good at the linebacker spot. He's going to slot in. He's going to slot in right away and be just fine. That's someone I know. Chase Young looked awesome, but that's another guy you could look at for Defensive Rookie of the Year after the early showings. This is kind of what we expected out of Baltimore. The questions were kind of becoming, oh, was Lamar Jackson figured out? Well, of course he wasn't. He still looks great. He's still cooked in this one. He was perfectly fine. They didn't have to run the ball as much with him, so he didn't really have to do as much on the ground with his legs. They dominated this one. This is a team that should dominate this one because they're Super Bowl favorites. I think that they looked the part, and they're going to continue to look the part. I think they're that good.
Yeah. Also, I'd be dismissed if I didn't talk about Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns. And how about Willie Snead, 64 yards and a touchdown of his own as well. Just a dominating win all around for Cleveland. Let's get into another one that this was a close line. It seemed pretty obvious, I think, for me that Seattle was going to run away with this one. They kind of did. I wouldn't say that it was a complete runaway, but I think our top story about this game, Younghoe Koo, yet another successful onside kick. How is he the onside kick GOAT? Your guy, your hero. I don't understand it. It's gotten to the point where it's like an Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary, where it's like at a certain point, you got to just accept like he's probably really good at this, even though to me it just seems like Rodgers just throws the ball up and Younghoe Koo just kicks the ball. Fantastic.
Yeah, he just pounds it into the ground and hopes for the bounce. But yeah, he's the greatest onside kicker of all time. I don't get it. But I'm going to continue to say it until I'm proven otherwise, man. He continues to get it done. I was pretty bullish on that. This was a lock for Seattle. I don't really like this Atlanta team. I don't like their secondary. And they kind of proved me on that one because Russell Wilson started like 10 for 10. You heard the rumors of that they're going to let Russ cook, and they let him go in this one. He looked awesome. I thought the team overall looked awesome. Russell Wilson's just awesome. But if you're also looking for on the other side, Atlanta feels pretty good about their offense too. They looked awesome throwing the ball against the Seattle secondary that we talked about. You have to feel good about that. Seattle's just a better team. They're a tier above them.
Yeah, your leading passer, Matt Ryan, right now. He threw the ball 54 times, but he had 450 yards. So, he was still, the ratio was still great. Julio Jones, 150 receiving yards. Calvin Ridley, 130. Russell Gage, 114. 3 different guys getting over 100 yards for the Falcons. Good offense. And, they can be concerned about the defense to some degree, but they get to play a much less potent offense next week. In the Cowboys, not saying the Cowboys, they still have a good offense, but just not, you don't have to deal with Russell Wilson. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And then, I guess looked at the comments. People very mad we waited so long to get to the Packers. I don't know why. Comments get mad at us sometimes. Okay, Packers. Really just, this score is not as close as it looks. 43-34. This was a blowout. Packers pretty much had this one handedly, really from the second quarter on. They outscored Minnesota 19-3 in that second quarter. Rodgers really trying to prove maybe could be an MVP candidate. I know it's way too early to even talk about that, but people have talked about it preseason. Could he be the guy? 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just a dominating thing. And of course, Devontae Adams, 156 of those yards. He also had 14 catches. So it wasn't like he just had one big play. He was getting the ball all game, a couple of touchdowns as well. For the Vikings, their offense was, obviously not the problem, but you can't be giving up a 43 spot to any team, even if it is a good Green Bay team.
Yeah, so let's go back to my NFL predictions part where I named some MVP candidates, and angry Aaron Rodgers came up in my conversation here for candidates for MVP. Obviously, I didn't pick them, so I can't take that much credit. But angry Aaron Rodgers came in and he delivered a very good performance. I was very impressed. Obviously, he has his guy Adams. I thought they did a very good job of spreading the wealth in the ground game. I thought my guy Aaron Jones did very well as well. I I've always been high on Aaron Jones. I mean, this offense looked great. I was all for what they did. Yeah, I mean, this is a good football team. I think that these were both very good football teams, and I'm still picking these two over the other two teams in this division, the Lions and Bears, who also played each other. But yeah, I think if you're Green Bay, you have to say you're probably just above this other team. You have to feel really good about that. I think that the offense just had their way with them, and Minnesota struggled to make adjustments, especially against Adams.
Yeah, the one thing you could say is that no Danielle Hunter. Again, I don't think you shouldn't be relying on one player that much. And as I've talked about in the past, Danielle Hunter is Green Bay's done a good job of taking Hunter out of the game. Adam Thielen proving he still can be successful even without Diggs, over 100 receiving yards and a pair of touchdowns himself. For the Packers, again, it just kind of makes you wonder. Someone just it's like you have Jordan Love, who they drafted. You have A.J. Dillon, who they drafted, who gets 2 carries for 14 yards. You have Joshua Dearga. I think I used to know how to pronounce it. Can't remember. 1 catch for 12 yards. I mean, it seems like they did their best to not add any talent, but they're still a Super Bowl contending team because they were a Super Bowl contending team last year. So I think that, again, maybe not. It would have been nicer if they could have added some more talent, I think, in the draft. But I'm very high on the Packers. Yet another really good coaching performance as well by LaFleur, a good young head coach.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson didn't do a lot in this game, but he would have been fun to see on this team for the Packers. I mean, Valdez-Scantling made a big play, a couple of big plays, and he had the touchdown, obviously. So you got to give him credit there. But at the same time, you can't help but think that you would love to see somebody else there that is a little bit higher caliber. So, I mean, the thing is, we've talked about these two teams, I think, a lot, especially we feel like that they're the two contenders in the NFC North. So I feel like theoretically, if we're going to continue to think that the next game they play against each other is probably going to decide the division. So what does Minnesota adjust here that, you can't let Adams do this to you. You just can't. That's clearly their go-to. It's been his go-to. You can't let him do this to you. How do you adjust that?
Yeah. Someone, again, Honk Lives Matter. Honk Lives Matter, doing a great job here in the chat. Said Lazard and MVS are good enough. I think that's not really my point. And I think that's not your point either. It's like, I'm not saying that they're not good enough. I'm saying that they could be better. And I think that's the frustration a lot of us have with the draft. But yeah, I mean, let's get on to the last game that we have to talk about. This was the Thursday night game. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, obviously. But kind of what we expected. It was kind of fun to see all the overreactions when literally we were like, this is exactly what's going to happen. I was doing some live betting. The easy bet right after Houston scored a touchdown to start putting money down on Kansas City, only at I believe it was -4 at that point. So this is kind of what we expected. Nothing really too surprising here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Edwards-Helaire looked explosive. I think that was the big takeaway from just about everybody in this one. It was heading into the game. It was the conversation was Deshaun against Mahomes, same draft class, all that kind of stuff, and it turned into David Johnson against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I thought Edwards-Helaire looked fantastic. Justified my my number 6 fantasy pick in my fantasy draft. Yeah, I thought he looked great. And, I think the big thing with Helaire was, he was taken in the first round because they were like, this guy fits our offense perfectly. He does a great job of catching the ball out of the backfield. They didn't use him catching the ball at all, and he still looked fantastic. And I think that's the one thing about running backs that takes the longest to integrate, especially as it pertains to pass protection. It's also kept running those routes out of the backfield, and I think that's something that's going to develop throughout his game at the NFL level. And I think he's going to be very good at that by the end of the season. So I can't wait to see what this offense looks like when Edwards-Helaire is catching the ball out of the backfield. I think the one thing about the Chiefs you look at, they didn't really have to get thrown off their kind of game plan. Houston didn't challenge them in any way. I thought it was actually kind of a conservative approach. They didn't do a whole lot. They took the one shot early in the first quarter to the end zone that Demarcus Robinson dropped. Outside of that, I feel like they didn't really need to do a whole lot, so they didn't do a whole lot. But they still look great. They still look like a Super Bowl, the team that won the Super Bowl and can do it again. I think on the other side, I do have a little more concerns about Houston. I think that while David Johnson looked good, I think that Bill O'Brien continues to frustrate me. I think that he's a great X's and O's coach, but you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, the best offense in football that everyone talks about all the time. You have a 4th and 4 at the 50-yard line, and you're punting. If you're planning to win football games, go win football games, especially if you're playing the Chiefs. You can't just let them do whatever they want to you. And I just feel like Bill O'Brien is constantly just makes bad decision after bad decision. That poor right tackle, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The poor right tackle.
He's good. I mean, he's good. He just got beat. I mean, he's the worst game of his career. Yeah.
Frank Clark eviscerated him the entire game.
That was surprising.
They didn't do anything to adjust to throw another body at him. I felt like the entire game, they were just like, okay, well, we hope he wins this battle. Frank Clark made him look like a high school kid. He dominated him in this one. I feel like that there was just no adjustments made this entire game for Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Honk Lives Matter again, saying classic Bob thinking zone scheme with the revenge at the Chiefs, LMAO. I don't know. I actually think that their strategy defensively wasn't terrible. Of let's play cover 2 a lot. Let's force everything in front of us, and let's just hope we get some mistakes. And if not, let's just limit the possessions so that way they're not going to be able to score 5 touchdowns in a quarter. And let's limit the possessions so we can kind of try and steal it. And we saw how poorly it worked when they were doing cover 1 against them in the playoffs. I mean, and I still do have to say it's like we can get on Bob all we want. At the end of the day, this Houston Texans team just isn't beating this Chiefs team. They don't have the secondary depth to do it. I think this gave them the best opportunity, but the only way they can do it is if it really does feel like the only way a team's going to beat the Chiefs. I feel like the same way for Baltimore. The only way a team's going to beat one of these teams is by scoring 30 plus points. I don't think you can beat them by shutting down their offense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's probably it. And I don't know. Houston just didn't look like a team that was going to make the playoffs. Obviously, how the AFC rolls out, obviously the AFC South, the Colts didn't look good. I don't think the Jags will be there, obviously. We'll see how Tennessee looks tomorrow. But it just doesn't look like a playoff team to me. I feel like they have some great talent. They have, obviously Deshaun Watson's a star. But it's just a lot of spots that you look like, well, that's not going to work. They have a bunch of guys in those secondaries that just look bad. They have a bunch of guys. I think the one takeaway that you feel good about for Texans is I thought J.J. Watt looked really good. The Chiefs are doing a weird thing where they get down to the goal line, and their decision for running with Edwards-Helaire was let's just run it at J.J. Watt. I don't know if they were trying to catch him upfield or something like that. But it didn't work because J.J. Watt read it every time and made big plays. I thought he looked pretty good, but the rest of the team I did not think looked very good.
Yeah. Also, another sauce boss said, how was that Snead kid? Yeah, that's worth. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yes.
L'Jarius Snead. I'm interested to once the all-22 footage gets out so I can really get a good angle of how well he played. I'm going to watch him film on him, maybe make a video. I don't know. But, he had a pick, really shut down the receiving core. I think that a lot of people were also complaining about why aren't you throwing the ball more? Why is the whole why aren't you throwing the ball downfield? Chiefs have a sneaky good secondary. I gave them a 10. I only gave 4 or 5 teams secondaries a 10. They were one of them. I mean, even without Breland, they're a good secondary. So again, that's the thing. It's for me, my biggest takeaways for the Chiefs were on defense, not on offense. Their offense was their offense, what I expected it to be. But the defensively, again, being able to really get constant pressure on the Texans O-line, which I still say is better than people realize, although definitely had a bad night on opening week. Pretty good first week for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrann Mathieu just continues to be my favorite, probably non-Patriot player in the league. He just makes plays no matter where he is. And I thought they tried to take a shot downfield when he was on the line of scrimmage. And he's the one getting in the backfield, hitting Watson as he's throwing the ball. And that leads to the Snead pick. I think that
Right.
Matthew just changes this entire team. This team, the secondary, I didn't think looked very good a couple years ago. They add a guy like Matthew, and all of a sudden they look great. I think that he changes everything for this defense. He's a Jamal Adams level impact player at a safety position.
Yeah, well, also getting rid of Bob Sutton, I think, had something to do with this shift. But yeah, definitely as a whole, good game for the Chiefs. So yeah, that's our show. Recapping a fun little way to do this. Right after it, we'll be back on Wednesday. What time did we say we're going to do it again? It was wait, 9 Eastern, 8 Central,
9
right?
Eastern, 8 Central. Yes, I'm on
That's right.
Central time now. It keeps throwing me off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Real quickly before we go, I guess I'll ask you, what are you looking in the Monday night games?
You said who am I picking for the Monday night games?
Just what are you looking for? What are you looking
What am I
at?
looking for? Okay. Yeah. Well, several things. I think that it'll be interesting. I think the Broncos, probably Broncos offense more than anything. Seeing how Drew Lock plays, that should be very exciting. Seeing, I think Ben Roethlisberger as well. Is Ben Roethlisberger back? Is he 100%? So far, it seems like the quarterbacks who we were worried about have done pretty well. Even Rivers' mistakes, he was okay, and obviously Cam Newton was fantastic. I guess Tom Brady not great either, but yeah, I think those two things. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people we're picking Buffalo as the third best team in the AFC. I think Pittsburgh on paper looks quite clearly like the third best team in the AFC. And one of the things I always kind of felt, people are kind of quick to, I feel like, talk about Ben Roethlisberger being washed. And I think it's because we saw a lot of what these old quarterbacks looked like last year, where, we can go back and forth on Breeze all day, but it seemed like some of the zip on his ball wasn't there. Phillip Rivers obviously looked very bad last year. Brady took a step back last year. Everyone was ready just to kind of write off Big Ben, I feel like, because of that. But we've never really seen Big Ben ever be bad. The last season that he played, he led the league in passing. So I'm interested to see that team. I think that they can be very good. I think that they could be a Super Bowl contender. So I want to see the complete package in week 1. I think that they're a way better team than the Giants. And then preseason, I was kind of looking, I kind of picked the Titans as a regression candidate, and I picked the Broncos as kind of a sleeper. Mm-hmm. And then the Broncos lost Von Miller, and the Titans added Jadeveon Clowney. So I'm really interested in these two teams. I view them kind of equally on par with each other. It's going to be interesting to watch, especially if Cortland Sutton can play.
Yeah, that should be a very interesting one. You picked Denver in our preview show. Currently, we'll talk more about that next week, or on Wednesday. We'll see who can. Right now, you have a 2-1 lead over me. I got 2 wrong. You got 1 wrong. But we each have. I have the Steelers. You have the Broncos for tomorrow. So hopefully, we get a Steelers win and a Titans win. So we can be all tied up.
No, I got to keep that 1 game advantage. Here we go, baby. Week 1.
Yeah. Well, yeah, see, very good. All right, fun stuff. Yeah, someone asked, Hunk Lives Matter asked, great show. Will you do this every Sunday? Yep, every Sunday at midnight Eastern. We plan on doing this. So definitely come by, right after the Sunday night game, basically. Come by, hang out. We appreciate everyone who is in the chat. We got close to 400 people at one point concurrent, so that's pretty cool. We always appreciate it. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.